This is Andy Howl from Burned at the Stake and the Church of Satan, and I'll see you at the Tampa Morgue.
Thank you for listening to the Tampa Morgue. This is Tony with my co-host Ed, and that was Burned at the Stake. They're out of Fort Myers, Cape Coral. The song was called Buried Alive. We're actually going to be joined by Andy Howl. He is the vocalist in the band. He's also the owner of Howl Tattoos, and it's also a music venue. So we'll get into a conversation with him in about probably like 20, 30 minutes. We'll talk about the Black Mass Fest at the Brass Mug, which they will be involved with coming up this weekend. And Eric Gran will join us at the end of the show also to talk about the fest. But first of all, what is up, Ed?
Mr. Anderson, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
It's Sunday, man. Sunday, the 22nd of October, or when everybody's listening, it may be a different day, but just doing what us guys do at this age. Waiting for some football today. You're off. You guys got to bye your team. The
Hmm.
Raiders play the Bears at 1 Eastern time, so that means 8 o'clock my time over here in Europe. So I'm looking forward to that. I know no one cares about football really, but we are those guys that do. So, but yeah, man, just
Unfortunately.
chilling. Yeah, just chilling. I know it's not always fun being fans of the teams we're fans of, but how's everything going with you, man?
Good, man. Good. Just another week down, closer to the end of the year.
Can you
It's
can
crazy.
you believe it's October 22nd already? It's like this shit is
That's
just flying by, man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. We're just getting closer to the end of days.
End of our days, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I also,
Exactly.
yeah, so it's October. I definitely love October. It's my favorite month of the year. Halloween is coming up. We actually at my house here, we actually have a pretty big Halloween thing that goes on. Last year, we had like 300 kids because in this country, Halloween is just kind of taken off. It wasn't a thing that was really celebrated too much, but it's starting to, like everything else, it's starting to take hold here. But we're probably going to get slammed this year with kids. We have a shitload of decorations that we bought over from the States, a bunch of those animatronics that are made very cheaply but look cool. And just a shitload of Halloween stuff. So we're kind of looking forward to that. My kids are starting to get to the age now where they appreciate Halloween. And your kids are probably at the age where they're out of Halloween somewhat, right? Out of that whole vibe.
Yeah, my youngest is 17. It's over. So
It's
the
done.
the fun is kind of, you know, I mean, we were going to get some blow ups and stuff for the yard, and I was just like, eh,
Yeah,
eh.
and you go to Spirit. I mean, I'm a big fan of of a lot of the decorations, but we always talk about those animatronics. They're
Cheap
made.
for what they cost, man. Yeah, they're ridiculous.
They're expensive as shit, but they are pretty cool. Um, Speaking of October, I just saw this morning, and I definitely want to give a congrats out. The crew of Deathgasm hit the goal they had for they're raising funds for Deathgasm 2, which is basically like the heavy metal horror film. They had a goal of 3,000K, and they hit it this morning. They still have 2.5 days left. So, I mean, if anybody, they're still going to keep it open for 2.5 days, but they are going to make the movie, which I think is awesome. We actually contributed a little bit from our show, so it's kind of neat. You'll be seeing our names in some of the credits, I guess, and stuff. But I think the first one came out in 2015, but Deathgasm 2, I believe they start shooting it in, I think, 2024, early 2024, I want to say. And also, I saw the Witching season which is the Witching season 2 is also doing an Indiegogo. I don't know, Ed, if you ever saw the Witching season 1, which came out in 2020. It's basically like a Halloween anthology. They're at 65% of their goal on Indiegogo. They have like 13 days left. So anybody that's into any of the Witching season, the first movie or the first anthology, feel free to go by there and check it out at Indiegogo, and you can contribute. I think that Dave from Acid Witch is actually doing the artwork for the posters and stuff, which looks sick. I don't know if you've seen any of Dave's artwork, but it's definitely killer. Yeah, but so Witching Season, you can find that at Indiegogo. And if you want to still hit up the Deathgasm, they have 2 days left. Like I said, it matters when you're listening to this, but you can visit www.bit.ly/deathgasm2 to contribute for that. But yeah, I mean, it's nice. I can't imagine it. It's so cool that you can actually make that money to make these movies right off these campaigns.
Yeah, well, look at the second Terrifier. You know that look at what that did for them, and
It's
now they're
funny
in a
when you hear
position.
3,000K, right? And then the first Terrifier was what, 35K?
Yeah, yeah, and again, remember what David said. That they were shooting for. Remember they said like 300,000. They're like, dude, we're
Or
not even going to get
50,000 or
close.
some shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
so they knocked it way down, and it surpassed it by a long shot. So that and it's good because you see the quality of movie you got. So hey,
yeah, it's cool that you
donate,
could
man.
do
It's worth
that.
it.
Yeah, it's cool that you could do that. And the cool thing about the Witching season, which we were talking about, I really liked the set. It had that look. Like there's certain movies with Terrifier had that Halloween vibe with the outdoors, kind of like Trick or Treat, the later version of Trick or Treat. Just a great Halloween setting, from the costumes to the leaves falling. There's that look, right? That
Right.
Halloween look in the town and stuff was just killer. So, But yeah, it's October, and I was, actually, we'll get to this in a minute, but I do want to say, Ed, I thought it was funny. We were talking about, on the last episode, we were talking about Nudslaughter, and I was talking about how many releases they had, and it was just like I was getting a little confused with the number because there was just so many, with splits and stuff. And then right when we signed off the show, I saw they released another split. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, with Cornugia, I believe it is. I might be saying that wrong. But they're going to be putting out a split, 500 copies on Phobia Records. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, I thought I was just like, I forget what the splits count was, but yeah, they have another one coming out. And when we get the info on the release date, I'll mention that and stuff. But also, Ed, have you checked out the new Autopsy song?
Yeah, man. It was, I checked it out the day it dropped, and it was definitely, Chris is the man. I mean, I saw them at Maryland Death Fest. So, that was with the infamous couple, fucking in the
Oh yeah,
in
that's
the pit.
right. That was
we witnessed that as it was going down, and that was crazy. But I'll tell you, man, you wouldn't think, somebody drumming and singing live, you would think there would be some hindrance, but Chris has got that shit down to a science. They were great, man. They were killer. And yeah, man, I when the song came out, I was like, man, this is it kind of was a little different. His vocals were a little different, heavier. Like, he did some like higher screams, and yeah, it's a great song, man. I hope that if that's what the album we're in store for, then I'm but I've been listening to them since Severed Survival and even before. So, I definitely dig, plus the name Throat Saw. That's just such a great name, man, for a song. So yeah, it was killer. Definitely.
It comes out, the release date for the album is October 27th on Peaceville Records. The art was done by Wes Benscoter, if I pronounced that right. He's a USA artist from the States. It's his 6th Autopsy cover. He did work for Sabbath, Cattle Decapitation, Deceased, Hooded Menace, Slayer, and Vader, just to name some. But it's 11 tracks on the new Autopsy. A couple of the titles I saw were like Toxic Death Fuck, Bones to the Wolves, Death is the Answer, and Rapid Funeral. It's the follow-up to the 2022 Triumphant. But, like I said, it's Autopsy, you can never go wrong with them. And Chris is a great guy. I've dealt with Chris several times. He actually did art for me and Ed. He did some sketches for some 7 inches for some of our older Generic Christ releases and stuff. And Chris is just a down-to-earth guy. Me and Ed did a split with his band Violation Wound with Flesh Reaper, the band, I guess the punkish death metal, thrash metal band that me and Ed do, with Scott from the Crucifix. So Chris did, his band Violation Wound was on that. He's just nothing but a good guy. And I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, Autopsy, you never get a bummer, right? I mean, it's always it's always killer.
Yep.
But yeah, October, like I was saying, I've noticed a lot the last 2 weeks, I mean, we mentioned Chris Oliva last week. Some guys, Ed, that you actually personally knew. October was a month. We've lost some guys in the last couple of years. Starting 2006, Jared Anderson, Hate Eternal.
Yeah, I owe a lot to that guy. A lot. When we, I don't know if I've ever mentioned it. I know I've told you a story, but I don't think I've ever told it like in a setting. But when I did that 2000 Diabolic tour, my gear got swiped in New York City. Our trailer got broken into as we were driving away, and they took my custom BC Rich bass. It was one of a kind. Had it personally made through BC Rich, and the bass that I did all my stuff with Eulogy, and it was a personal bass. It was just an Ibanez bass, but it was the personality to it. You know what I mean? And Brian Hipp's guitar that he recorded When the Sky Turns Black got stolen. So we both had some gear that meant a lot to us stolen. So there was a lot of shit going on that tour, and right away, Alex Webster offered me to use his modulus basses, which are like $2,000-$3,000, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way. And Jared Anderson, he was playing. Steve Tucker was had a custom bass being made, so he had given Jared his Mockingbird, and he had a backup Ibanez. So he offered me to use it, and I used it a couple times, and then I got my own bass. Obviously, we told that story, but after when the guys, pulled their little "give me my bass back" thing, Jarrett came to Tampa because he was practicing to do the Morbid tour when Tucker left. He went. I think he did the European version. He sang and played bass. Came to my house and handed me that bass that he was letting me use on tour and gave it to me. Told me whatever happened to me was bullshit, and he needed to see me continue down the path, and like didn't want any money for it. I'm pretty sure I gave him a little something, on the backside for it. No law enforcement needed, and but he took care of me, and that literally catapulted me to getting all my gear back and getting everything. And if it weren't for that, I don't know. But Jared was one of the coolest guys. Never wanted a penny from me, and he was such a great dude. When I did the Morbid tour, he was on the bus, killer. And then the Hate Eternal that whole time. He's just a great dude, man. And he's one of the few that I wish, you say the good die young. He was definitely one of the ones that should not have. He was plus Internison was a killer fucking record.
Well, in Turnison, you had what? You had Derek Roddy on the drums for that album. You also had Tony Loreno was on that record.
Yep.
I think Derek played drums on maybe like Ceremonies of Deceit and Calling of the Hordes. You had Eric Gran, who did the solos for the record.
Right.
That was what, 2002. You had the Book of Lambs record was the last thing that they released, I believe, and they had the 97 demo. But yeah, I mean, Jared, it's crazy.
We did a show with Internison before I even knew who Jared was. They played the Brass Mug, and we played that show. That was the first time I saw Jared, and I met him that night, and it was killer. And he remembered, and like I said, just a guy that, I've known a lot of people over the years, but that guy was what I would consider the real deal, man. Like a guy who probably could have been in the biggest band in the world and would still be a down-to-earth, righteous dude. So, yeah, man, I miss that guy. He's killer.
And someone else mentioned the other day on our Instagram page, and I do agree with them, it's a shame we didn't see any recordings with Morbid Angel with him, and stuff. I mean,
supposedly there's a couple of videos floating around somewhere with him doing it in Europe, but I haven't seen it. But, yeah, man, that was
2006.
He's good.
Yeah, October 14th, 2006, we lost him. But you mentioned Brian Hipp, who was also another October.
That's another one.
He was with Asheron in 98. After Death, obviously, he did the demo. He did the Consumed by Fire demo. Diabolic. Yeah, Skies Turn Black, which you mentioned, the guitar story.
Yeah, I got him in Diabolic, man, because I knew, when we needed a guitar player, that dude, he was a shredder, man. There was no doubt about it that he could play just about anything. There was a time when he did a little stint with the guys from Cradle of Filth. So,
that was 94, 95, but that was live, right?
Like that. Yeah, something like that. And, but yeah, he was just a good killer musician. And, yeah.
Yeah, he was. So you got Cradle of Filth. And I know, what's interesting, the Diabolic, you talk about that record. So I guess the release got delayed from some label conflicts, I believe. And I think that album came out right before the next album from 2021, The Vengeance Ascending, I guess. I mean, you may know more about than I do, obviously, but I guess with Subternal Magnitude, it came out right weeks before Vengeance Ascending.
Yeah, I don't know that, because that was they were on. I'm pretty sure they were still on Conquest on Lee's label. So I'm not sure. I wasn't part of that. I just wrote all the friggin' lyrics and got no credit for it. So, and put all those songs together, and and don't even get acknowledged for that shit. But hey, that's okay.
And we'll acknowledge you here, man. We'll acknowledge you here for sure.
Shit. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Thanks. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. I'm bowing. Thank you.
We have effects now. We've moved up in the podcast world. We figured out how to turn on the start button, and now we've got effects. But another guy, Frank Watkins. We know him mostly from Obituary. He was 89 to 2010. I think the last full length he did with them was Darkest Days. Obviously, he was in Hell Witch, which I totally forgot to mention when we had Pat on, because he was on the 89 rehearsal demo. I think he was there from like 88 to 89. The years get a little confusing. Gorgoroth. So yeah, the Henchman. So Frank, that was 2015, I believe he passed away, but it was October also.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, did you have any dealings with Frank? I mean, I've met Frank a few times, but it was basically just
Yeah. I mean, nothing like, we didn't hang out or anything, but yeah, I talked to him many times over the year. He was a good guy, man. I mean, obviously consummate professional, did the obituary thing for many, many years. So yeah, man, it was, that was a surprise, man. When I heard, that he had passed, I was like, man, you just look at some of the people, I mean, like Chris Olivia, and obviously that was a car accident, but when up and out of the blue, it just like Jared, when I heard, I was like, man, and this is like 2006, the internet wasn't even, you know what I mean? So, but then when Frank, I was everywhere. So, yeah, it was definitely, that was a fucking bummer, man.
Yeah, and then he joined Gorgoroth, which at first I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh shit, Gorgoroth. I mean, I didn't kind of expect that at first, but it's, like I said, as we get older, we see a lot more of this. And October, I just noticed that it's a lot more guys than I thought, especially even Florida scene related. I even saw yesterday, what's his name? Peter Hobbs passed away. I think it was 2019. He was only like 58. We actually played that festival that Nick Goodyear put on, the Swarm Fest. I think that was like 2016. That's the last time I saw him, Peter. But Hobbs, Angel of Death, it's crazy. You think 58 years old. Well, to us, yeah, we are younger than that, but it doesn't seem
Not
that old
by much.
anymore, right?
Not by much.
Yeah,
Not
if you would have said that,
anyway.
if you would have said that, like when I was a kid, I was like, that seemed to me like it was a pretty, old age. But it's crazy how time goes.
Such is
and
life,
stuff,
man. Such is life.
Yeah,
Live fast, die young. Wasn't that what we heard growing up? Live fast and die young, and leave a great looking corpse, man.
Yeah, and you say it a lot until you start getting to be like the older ages, I guess, and stuff.
Yeah,
but
then you regret saying it.
They're like, oh shit, But yeah, just a lot that I mean, like I said, when I saw Frank, I totally was like, oh shit, yeah. When is the first time you saw Obituary? Do you remember?
The first time I saw Obituary was, well, I saw Executioner, so kind of Obituary, but it was probably somewhere in Tampa, maybe Volley Club or somewhere in Tampa, but it was when they put out Slowly We Rot. So it was early days, super early days. And then they were so good.
When was the first time you
saw who?
Deicide. What was your first Deicide show?
Same thing. Amon. I saw Amon around the same time playing shows with Executioner. So Deicide was probably around the same time, right when they put the record out. Because I hadn't heard that Amon became Deicide. It wasn't until like I was going to Aces, and it might have been David Vincent or Murphy. It was one of those two that were talking about that show.
Yeah, speaking of Aces, I think Frank actually, obviously Frank that was the owner of Aces, I think he passed away in October also. Did you actually meet Frank? Did you have any dealings with him?
Oh, I had many dealings with Frank. Many.
No, because I think it was October. Like I said, the dates kind of get a little confusing. But Aces, I know, even when I was up in Jersey, you'd hear about Aces. It's one of the more historic music places. And what, James Murphy worked at Aces, and Dave Vincent, right?
David Vincent, yep, and some other guys, but no, those were the two of the what I would call the big dudes, because they're the ones that turned me on to, like, David turned me on to like the Carcass early days, Carcass and stuff like that, Entombed, The Left Hand Path, and stuff like that. Where Murphy was more of the thrashy, power metal-y stuff because he was in a he was kind of in a couple of those bands before he'd gotten Death. So, and when I met him, he was already, the spiritual healing was already out, and he was out of the band. So, but yeah, they were always showing you the new stuff that was coming out because you couldn't get that anywhere else in Tampa. Aces was the place. You went, we would get up at fucking 8 o'clock in the morning, me and my buddy, and we were fucking drive from where we lived to Oldsmar. It was a good 25, 30-minute drive, around the town because there was no easy way to get there. Back now, you could get there 20 different ways, but back then it was like you had 2 ways to get there. And walk in, and I mean, it was just, if you've never been to the original Aces at the Oldsmar Flea Market, it's very difficult to explain how epic that was, the atmosphere, because it's not like your typical Sam Goody tracks, Peaches, none of that shit. This was a full-on heavy metal fucking record store. And yeah, I'm glad, again, I'm old as shit, but I'm just glad that, I was able to be a part of that time frame. So, yeah.
And the Oldsmar flea market's still standing. Wagon Wheel's done, which I hope they do something else with
Oldsmar's
that.
done. Oldsmar's done. It's
they got rid of Oldsmar too now.
It's like not what it used to be by any stretch. It's what you call it. It's kind of like, I think there's a part of it that's still open, but the main thing, Wagon Wheel's done. Big Top that used to be on Fowler's gone. I mean, there's no real, flea markets that I know of anymore, really. So I feel bad for people because that's where they used to go sling their shit. And now what? Offer up?
I mean, we even
you got to fucking
even
put
in
it on offer up.
Yeah, now there's so much like, then you'd have to go to a record store. I remember, was it? I want to say it was like Sound Exchange in Pinellas that actually had a decent selection. I think they moved, but a lot of the record shops are closed now. It's the same up and everywhere. Obviously, it's hard for record shops to actually stay open these days. Some of them do though. I mean, Jersey, we had the flea markets too. I definitely was a fan of that. Even here actually. So we have a market here in Lithuania that they have open on the weekends, and there's a lot of people selling records out there. The problem is everyone knows the price of records are just jacked now. Like you're going to pick up records and it's like they are totally like jacked up in price and stuff. They know what they're selling. It's not like it's very hard to go and get a steal at a at a flea market. You're not getting deals anymore, really.
Nothing. Video games too. They're jacking up the price on video games. Where if you went onto eBay, you can get the same shit like records too. You just got to worry about somebody sending you the wrong album, scamming your ass, especially if you're paying full dollar for something.
Yeah, that is definitely a fucking issue, man. But yeah, so our guest has arrived, and we announced earlier we actually played one of the tracks off of. I guess it's not, they're pretty much the track they have out right now before they record the new album, but we would like to welcome Andy Howl to the show, owner of the Howl Tattoo, and it's also a music venue, and also the front man for the band that we opened up the show with, Burned at the Stake. What's up, man? How you doing, Andy?
Oh, not much. I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, man. And we're going to cover, we'll cover the band. We're going to cover some of the other stuff you're into. We'll just start out finding a little bit about you, if it's cool, man. So you were originally born in Lansing, Michigan?
I was born on it's like northern Michigan as an Air Force base. My dad was in the Air Force as he navigated a bomber during Vietnam. Okay. So, it was basically, I grew up in farm country.
Okay, so it was a bit, and so you grew up in Michigan, which I know some Michigan bands. I think of the Meatmen, or obviously Alice Cooper, Acid Witch, Halloween, not Halloween, but Halloween. Obviously Ted Nugent, Tyrant. So it's definitely some musical history there, a lot of it.
Oh yeah.
And so when you were growing up in in Lansing. I had talked to you a little bit yesterday, and you said so you were getting in a little bit of trouble back then when in your early days, right? When you were growing up.
I mean, my family was divorced, you know, so I grew up with bad step parents, you know, or not great step parents, and you know, typical stuff that kids did in the '90s: vandalism, you know, shoplifting, pot, all that good stuff.
All those fun things. Yeah. And and musically you were introduced early to like Elvis, the Doors, and the Stones.
Yeah, I mean, my parents were children of the '60s. You know, they were in college in the '60s, so they had all that kind of classic stuff. And my dad was a big Elvis and Doors fan, and big Stones fan too. So I absorbed all that.
And the Doors,
But
you know, I'm kind of surprised sometimes that people don't. Some people are like, I don't like the Doors. I don't know, man. I listen to you listen to the L.A. Woman record, or like,
oh
just
yeah,
the Changeling and stuff like that. It's just great shit. And the Stones,
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, all that there's like that stuff with the attitude, that male kind of rebellion attitude. You know, that comes through in the styling. You know, especially
with
Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison's like, he had a great fuck you kind of punk rock mentality. You know.
Yeah, before it was a thing. Yeah, he definitely did.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a Doors guy and a Stones guy. I liked all that stuff growing up, also.
Yeah.
And but you're shoplifting, which is obviously it did introduce you to some records, right? You stole your first.
Well, I mean, I was always an artist. You know, I was always interested in like cool art imagery. You know, comic books. And heavy metal artwork. When I first saw the album covers, I was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. I literally got most of the albums I got during middle school based on the cover art. You know, Eddie, you know, the Iron Maiden covers were, you know, they're still amazing. And like, you know, Entombed Wolverine Blues album, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, because that would be like, what, 90, that album. And I guess with probably Left Hand Path, which Ed mentioned earlier in the show, which actually goes to that time period. If you were shoplifting around that period, probably Carcass was what? Heartwork?
The Heartwork album was the one I listened to all the time. Yeah, I had all the cassettes. You know, it was the days of Walkmans.
Oh yeah, remember that? Imagine now, like, you know, or when the kids used to carry the big fucking radios on their shoulder. You know, like, I think that shit's done.
They don't know having to take the cassette out with a pen or a pencil and fucking rewind that shit because it got all eaten up. They don't know. They don't know the struggle.
But I mean, cassettes were better than CDs because as soon as those compact disc players came around, they were always skipping all the time. You know.
Well, with tapes too, I know now I have a bunch of these old tapes, these demos. I'm afraid to you're afraid to play them now because back then you didn't realize that the shit's going to be worth something. So you're like, oh man, if I play this and it eats it, that's like, you know, I mean, I see some of those prices for those old demos. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I haven't even looked, but yeah, I've got most of my old stuff in the garage.
Yeah, it's crazy the prices have gone, you know. But so you wound up in Florida, what, 2004?
Yeah, so after high school, I went to college in Savannah, did art school there, got a degree in comic book art, and then moved back to Michigan, had a kid, and then ended up moving to Florida, where my ex's family was living. So,
what comics were you into?
I mean, back in the day when I was in high school, I would, you know, drive to East Lansing comic book stores and get pretty. I mean, I started off on Daredevil, and then I was like a lot of Hulk, a lot of Marvel stuff. I had a huge Hulk collection. I think it was something about that Jekyll and Hyde kind of character that appealed to me, having that rage inside of you, you know, just being pissed off all the time.
And you were into art early too, right? You were already drawing.
Oh yeah, and my mom encouraged me a lot. My mom was like an English teacher, became a principal eventually, but she put me in private art lessons, and I had a lot of cool art teachers at a young age. I had a preschool art teacher that took my artwork to one of her shows in Russia. So like I had a piece of artwork exhibited in Russia when I was in like preschool, which is pretty funny.
Wow.
I guess she still has it, and it's pretty awesome, but I don't remember what it is. But yeah, I was always encouraged to be like, by the time I was at the end of high school, I was just making up my own art classes and going to community college, you know, to take more art classes because I had exhausted all of the high school art classes.
How was when you were attending school in Savannah? How was that, the art school there?
It was good. I mean, Savannah back then was like a ghost town in the 90s. There was like a little bit of a goth scene. The dorm room was like an old Days Inn that they had turned into a dorm. The Civic Center was right next door, and I remember like going to see like White Zombie and stuff like that back then in the 90s, right next door to the dorm, which was cool. Um, I got into tattooing at that point. I started getting tattooed a lot. That was the first time I really saw a lot of tattoos. And my buddy Clay still tattoos there, and he put it in my head to maybe think about tattooing, which I eventually did later.
What, you started in 2002 tattooing?
Yeah, right. But about the same time my son was born, I started tattooing on the side. I was working for a software company, like illustrating children's software, like for elementary school kids, like educational stuff. And that sucked a lot. But I mean, it was what I went to school for, so that was nice. But I ended up doing more and more stuff on the computer. I had my own t-shirt company that I was putting my artwork, like screen printing, in my basement. But I ended up doing more and more web design type stuff and getting into more graphic design, and ended up working for the guy that owned marijuana.com. So I had this great work at home job where I was getting like $50K a year, basically doing weird stuff and managing websites that were like selling fake weed, legalbuds.com and shit like that. That was but that got me out of, that one job. And then it got me working at home so I could move to Florida. So I like cashed out the 401k that I had with the educational software company and used that money to get the hell out of Michigan. Because I didn't want to be in Michigan. It's just too cold. It's like 8 months a year is dreary and gray, especially in Lansing. It's just like it's got the lake effect like Seattle has, where it's always gray.
Oh, I totally understand, man. I'm in Eastern Europe for this winter, and it is already
it's brutal, right?
Some snow yesterday already. A little bit of flurry. I was like, already, man. It just seems like the summer ended. But so you do custom illustrative black work, and traditional tattoos?
It's like I lean towards basically like black and white comic book art, like horror comic books and that kind of stuff. That ended up being my biggest influence, like Bernie Wrightson and horror artists along those lines, Frank Frazetta. That stuff ended up being what I really liked when I found out about it. All the black and white artwork, anything like horror or heavy metal illustration looking, that's what I like my tattoos to look like, with some influence on traditional tattooing because it looks the best as you age, simpler. So thick outlines, but also detail.
And you actually opened up your own shop, right? Howl Tattoos, which is in 2009. So it's actually, and I actually didn't know this, and I lived in Florida forever, I'm kind of surprised I didn't know this. So it's 50% venue and 50% tattoo shop?
Yeah. We started off as mostly a white wall looking gallery space, and we had bands play on the back patio. This is when we were in downtown Fort Myers. And we had like 3 tattoo stations. We were under some restrictions by the city because they really didn't want tattoo shops opening in the historic district. So that's how we're able to do it, is a gallery and an arts tattoo shop. And then when we relocated, we got out of downtown Fort Myers because the rent was just way too high. They had attracted a bunch of investors, and all these restaurants started opening, and it was just we weren't doing well enough in that area. So we moved to like the core of Fort Myers, which is like US 41 and Colonial, and opened in like an old plaza there next to Brent's Music. When we got there, we were doing gallery stuff, but we weren't selling enough artwork to make it make sense. It's not a big area for selling cool like rock posters, and like I had like Derek Hess coming down from Cleveland a lot to do art shows with me, and it just wasn't selling enough. So it was like, what are we gonna do? So like we had enough space in this where we're at now, which is about 3,000 square feet, to do like 5 tattoo stations, a piercing station, and have a small stage in the other half of the shop. So I built a stage in like a week or two, and we got our beer and wine license. And then we're just like, let's just start doing music shows all the time. Let's just focus on getting bands in here and like having it be like host original music like we had been, but more in like a consistent way, every weekend or multiple times a week.
Yeah, and I guess with having a tattoo shop and the venue, I'm sure, because I know how the liquor license works. Like if you don't have a liquor license, it's hard to make enough money to have a venue. But if you have with the beer and wine license, because it's obviously cheaper.
The beer and wine helps, but it's not really like a liquor. You to really make money as a bar, you got to have that liquor license. If you don't have it, you just you're gonna do okay selling beer and wine. But it's like all those bars make all their big money selling liquor.
Yeah, so I used to book shows in St. Petersburg in early 2000s, and at this place called Venom, and we'd had the beer and wine license, and we got killed because we would have these nationals come in, these national death metal bands, and they had high guarantees. But if you have a liquor license, you can make that money to pay the guarantees. If you're going just off the door, you're kind of fucked a little bit. Just how that works.
Yeah, that's why I almost never do guarantees. Like I think the only band that I've ever done a guarantee with was Merle, the Murder Junkies, because I know what to expect when Merle comes to town. And it's like, it's gonna be we're gonna be able to do it just based off the door.
So I booked the Murder Junkies for I guess I could say how much it was. I don't really, not a big deal, but this was like probably 2002, Ed, 3. I booked them at Venom for I think it was $500. I had to put them at basically hook them up at a strip bar, which my buddy Harley owned, which was actually friends with Merle. And so, there wasn't a bad guarantee. I'm sure it's more now, but that's when Jeff Clayton was singing for him from Anti-Scene. He was doing that tour. It was a big riot at the show. We talked about that on some earlier episodes. But I know how that works. And the thing about guarantees is a lot of times, man, when you pay a guarantee, you don't enjoy the show as much because you just know you got to make that money. So you're kind of like stressed out the whole night and shit. It's a little stressful, but
I mean, it's definitely that's the whole thing with doing live events, which I've been doing so for so long now. But there's always like a little bit of stress running the show, no matter what.
Yeah, dealing with bands and stuff, and all that crap. But and it was just so. Had you attempted to be in bands prior to? We're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to jump around a little bit, but you formed.
Sure. Oh yeah.
You formed Burned at the Stake in 2019 with. Now, you formed it with James, right? Who I do know James, actually, I believe, because I booked his band back in 2002, I want to say, at Venom.
Yeah.
Off when they put out, I think it was Hollow of Insects single back then. It was, is that Neither, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I've known James forever. He used to play at Howl with Neither when we were downtown. We did a bunch of shows. Even when we moved to the new space, we did a show in the parking lot with Neither. I've known him for a long time. Basically, I was friends with this other guy, Jeff, who's not in the band anymore, Jeff Leonard. He was been in a lot of punk bands, older dude. And he encouraged me. I was like, dude, I need to start a band. Like, I'm going through a divorce now. I've got a lot of stuff like weighing me down, and I need like an outlet. I want to be in a band because I wanted it when I was younger, but the people in Michigan they didn't click. They were more interested in just hanging out and watching movies and smoking weed. So it just never really happened. But it was always one of those things in the back of my head that was like, I got to do this. Like it's one of those things that, when you really have certain things that you dream about, you could do it. It's just a matter of the timing and things going, just working out right. And basically I just like put a posting on Facebook. It's like, who's out there that wants to do a metal band? I'm looking for a drummer. I'm looking for a guitar player, and people popped up right away. And they were really good people because they knew me from running Howl, running sound for their bands and stuff like that. So it pretty much fell into place right away, but it was a process of finding the actual right people and not people that wanted to turn it into something else. Because from the beginning, I was like, I like stoner rock and I like black metal. So I'd like to
what do you guys call it?
I
saw something listed like apocalyptic black metal with doom and stoner influences.
The apocalyptic thing, the apocalyptic part of it has come later, and it's like, what kind of black metal are we? Like, what are we going to look like? We don't want to be like a really clean corpse paint looking band. We want to do something a little bit different. So essentially it's the Black Sabbath, Sleep, High and Fire, and merging it with like Gorgoroth, which I fucking love, or like Belphegor. Yeah. So you've got the intensity, but then it also goes into like some, into some heavy riffs and Sabbathy kind of shit. I think those two things make sense together. And I mean, I think it's been done, but we're just kind of like, I want to capitalize on that idea even more, and I love death metal too. Like, I grew up listening to tons of death metal, but I definitely want to lean more towards the black metal sound,
It's like a Black Doom.
Exactly.
Like Black Doom. Yep.
Yeah, Black Doom.
And lyrically, did you write the lyrics for the band?
Yeah. And a lot of it is like based in like different ways that people have been executed publicly, which is kind of like, being shamed. The society is shaming you. You being
It's like a vengeance
humiliated.
your lyrics, right? You got like the whole vengeance
Yeah.
thing going on.
Yeah. And that definitely ties also into personal relationships and how women are and how shit just disintegrates, personal relationships and how women can try to humiliate you publicly for no fucking reason except that you broke up with them, and just that whole vengeance and how it goes both into the public societal kind of realm, and it also goes into the personal kind of like how you treat people, how others treat you. There's definitely it's kind of like two sides of the same coin,
And you guys also tie in like
ties,
the witch burnings, right? With that, you kind of take the whole witch
yeah,
burning thing and tie it into that whole.
exactly. And it's the whole like the society, the larger group, like bastardizing you, treating you like really horribly, which happens all the time. Society is demonizing people, and it happens in relationships too. So it's just like those are where I'm getting my ideas for the lyrics, is like my personal experience and then like historical, so it's something that everybody can relate to in some way.
Yeah, so we saw, like I said, we started out with the track on the show, one of the track that you guys have out,
Yeah.
and I actually watched the video for that, and I sent Ed the video. I think it was yesterday.
It's a good video. It was done very well, and
your son did that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. My son is a lot like me in a lot of ways, but in some ways he's not exactly. But it's great working with him. He really loves horror movies. He grew up on the Marvel movies and all of like the Sam Raimi stuff. He's a huge Sam Raimi fan.
Evil
he
Dead,
graduated
course,
from
which is
Evil Dead. John Carpenter. Like he's literally ingesting all horror movies from like the last 100 years, like still right now. He went to FSU for film. And
he's a aspiring horror director, right? And how do you say it?
Zane
Adam? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Zane Adam. Yeah. Well, his last name is his mother's, but I gave him his middle name, and that's how he goes professionally, is Zane Adam. Okay. And Adam spelled Atom, which is kind of a cool comic book kind of thing.
And you guys, you're also obviously we're kind of all the same age. I think me and you are actually a little bit closer. Andy, Ed's a little couple of years older than me, but you come from the VHS era, which me and Ed totally come from. Also, and you were also a horror fan growing up. What were some of the films that really started you out, you think?
I mean, I feel like the first horror movie I ever saw was Halloween Part 2, where they're running around in the hospital.
When that nurse gets hooked up by the scalpel in the back, that's what's
Yep.
And I was like, "What is this? This is crazy," and then it just snowballed from there. And we would, me and my friends would just rent we'd just go through the video store horror section and just watch everything. I Spit on Your Grave, all the Friday the 13th stuff. Anything with tits and murder, those they go together.
That was the thing back then, and was the deal. And you talk about Halloween too. I mean, Halloween
Mr.
1
Skin?
was
Mr. Skin.
Yeah,
he would go through all the horror movies and that stuff to find all the naked parts.
I think he made $1 million off of that too. But but Halloween 2, I mean, Halloween 1 is definitely like one of the main ones. I actually like Season of the Witch too, but I mean, Halloween 2 is a great movie. You had you had Dick Warlock and Billy Warlock, who was father's son. They were at a convention together years back in Orlando at the Spooky Empire. But that's definitely some of the film. Back those VHS you mentioned when we used to go to Blockbuster and they had all the VHS tapes on the shelf.
Yeah, I miss that stuff.
We're no longer going to refer to it as the VHS. We're going to call it Blockbuster era.
Blockbuster era.
I mean, right? I mean, it's like
a lot of the VHS play. Yeah, well, even dude, I would go like every week, every like multiple days of the week. Once if you're a metalhead shut in like I was, or I just preferred playing Dungeons and Dragons on the computer and renting VHS tapes. I mean, it was constant, I think most of the rental stores I went to were more like family owned. They weren't like the Blockbuster chain ones.
Yeah, the little private
they were like
ones
the smaller.
That were normal.
Yeah, they were more like that, and they usually had a lot more weirder stuff. And like, I don't think Blockbuster had like I Spit on Your Grave. Like that's like just a little bit more, or like Cannibal Holocaust, and the more like the deeper cuts from the 70s.
Eclectic. The eclectic
Yeah.
old
Yeah.
shit that couldn't.
I remember when they got
me-
DVDs, I was like, shit, man, we can't afford no DVD player. Like back when I was a
Right.
kid, I
Exactly.
remember being like, oh, what are we, but then it became eventually it became all DVDs, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
If I remember
Yeah.
correctly. It was definitely a weird time. But you guys, so you have the one track out now. You guys have also dealt with a problem that every band deals with in Florida and everywhere. Everybody we talk to deals with it. Me and Ed have dealt with it a million times. The fucking drummer, right? That seems like
Oh God. Well, yeah, we've had we're our fourth drummer now, which I think we got a good one. Finally, I think he's going to stick around. We've had the first three were just like constant problems. Yeah.
It's normal though, man. That's for everybody has the same.
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. Well, you got to learn. You got to learn on your own.
Yeah, that's how when you find a good one, that's when you got to keep them. The problem is that a lot of those good drummers are in like 7 different bands. I mean, that's usually because everybody
there's
wants
somebody-
them,
There's somebody always trying to clip them out from under you. Not that I've never had that happen before.
That's how it goes. When you got a drummer, it's like that is the hardest thing. Everybody plays guitar. Bass players are around,
Yeah.
singers, but that drummer is like the biggest pain in the ass to get sealed down.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially down here in Southwest Florida, it's not like a big city. I mean, Fort Myers is decent size, but it's a lot of old people down here. It's not
Actually,
like Tampa where there's a huge metal crowd.
Our drummer, Angelo, lives in Fort Myers. He drives up to
He
St.
knows-
Pete.
Oh yeah. Hellfrost is a good friend. I actually did a T-shirt for Hellfrost just recently.
Yep. Yeah. So he drives up to St. Pete, or he was, to jam with us. And that's a fucking drive. But, he was
Yeah.
like, man, if you're going to play in a band, you got to do it.
Well, your first show was with
Yeah.
Hellfrost, wasn't it? It was like Hell at the
yeah,
Howl, which
yeah.
is your tattoo place.
Yeah. I think that was our debut show was with Hellfrost and Nosratep.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was what, and that was at your venue, correct?
That was at Howl. Yeah. So I got to have somebody else run sound when I play. But I've tried to do both. I've tried to run sound and play, and it's no good. It's not a good idea.
I couldn't imagine that. Yeah. And what is your lineup now? If you want to tell us your band lineup.
So right now it's me on vocals, James Scott from formerly of Neither on lead guitar, and he's writing most of the songs. We've got Doug Campbell, who was in a band called Dead Ritual before this. He played at Brass Mug a lot with Dead Ritual. My bass player is he goes by the name Chopper Head Off right now. He's a good friend of mine. He actually used to do security work for like the Saudi royal family, but he's like a hardcore behemoth metalhead, black metal fan. And my drummer goes by the name Menacer, and he's originally from Cleveland. And he was in he's drummed with a lot of people. Like he's drummed with some people from Nunslaughter, Incantation, stuff like that. He was in The Rebirth, the second version of Black Death, which was the very first like all black death metal band. And he helped start them up again later. So it wasn't an all black band anymore, obviously. But he's a really good drummer. He's very fast. So he's only been down in the area for like maybe a year.
Oh, you see that, Ed? You got a new guy. So that's what you got to do. You got to get the guys that move into town.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how you always do it.
We got lucky. He just came to one of our I think it was not our last show, but the one before that at Ollie's in Cape Coral. He showed up like just looking around for bands to drum with, and was like, Dave from Hellfrost was actually like, "Hey, talk to Andy. He needs somebody."
Yeah,
So,
actually, Ed's played with Angelo and what you do, Ed? You did DTR with Angelo. What else did you do with Angelo?
That's
Generic Christ.
Yeah, that's pretty much. We did that for many years. We started that. He was actually in Contorted at the end. He was starting to drum with us when Jim Coker left, and I guess it was a little after Jim left. But then kind of fell apart, and me and him split from Contorted and created, Destined to Ruin, and we did that for many years until
And now he's over at Hellfrost.
Yeah, yep. And then I got him with us for a little bit.
So you guys are going to start, which I did find when I first talked to Andy. I did talk to Andy last night a little bit, and it was hard to find material for you guys because you guys have only recorded one track, and you guys are.
Yeah.
I know you guys have a couple songs, right? You Everything Burns, Beheaded. Are you guys Is that going to be part of the new record you guys are working on?
Yeah, we're gonna record the live set that we've been doing. But the newer stuff, we're kind of trying to fine tune it more to get more of the black metal stoner rock vibe, because it's been a little bit all over. Our original bass player Jeff, he wrote a lot of the songs, and he's more like a hardcore punk dude. Even though I was like, I want to do a black metal band, so he kind of like did his best kind of merging of his tastes into what fit. But we're leaning more, into the try like faster. I want to go faster. I want to, more angry, more faster. That's kind of the vibe we're after. So we're gonna record the original stuff and do it right. And it's it's the live set we're still doing now with a couple new additions. But eventually, the second album we do would probably be more in line with what we're actually going for. We've got more time to dial it in. But we still love all the songs we're playing live. It's just a matter of we've been a band for like 4 years now, and just kind of evolving.
Do you guys have a working title yet for the record, or are you just kind of throwing things up in the air still?
Not really. I've had a very visual dream of seeing the vinyl album and opening it up, but I have no idea what it's called.
Yeah, the vinyl, it's getting that shit pressed. I think it's getting better now. I just talked to actually Mike from Horror Pain Gore Productions out of Philly like 2 days ago about that, and he was actually telling me that the vinyl plants are freeing up a little bit, because there was like a year or two waiting list for bands eventually when the pandemic struck. Vinyl's not fucking cheap. Like, we've had vinyl pressed, but like we usually try to get it done through labels because it's just expensive as shit, man.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the times the cheaper companies that you find, the quality isn't always as good.
Yeah, definitely. And but it's great when you see your artwork on a big old album cover, and like it's just you flip it around and stuff. I know me and Ed love that shit. I actually
different color records.
Color
records.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of the digital releases. I get it, you got to do it, but I'd much rather release physical.
But like a lot of people don't even have CD players anymore.
Yeah. Or how about tapes? I see a lot of people.
I think tapes are a cool collector's item, and along with vinyl, where you're really supportive of the band, so you get the vinyl and you get the cool artwork and all that. But obviously everybody's just streaming stuff now.
Yeah, it's totally.
I think I'd like to put some stuff out that you can only get at shows.
That does. I saw who the hell was doing that. There was a couple bands last year that you were seeing that they were on tour. I think it was Destroyer 666 actually. They were doing where you can only get the material at the concerts and stuff, which is cool unless you're not able to get to the shows. But I definitely
and cutting out the middleman and on the internet, because there's only so much money to be made now,
And you deal with such shit from labels. We've had some battles, right, Ed, with some labels.
Oh my God. I truly believe though, having there was one band, I can't even remember who it was. We went there and they're like, yeah, we don't even sell physical copies. Just go to our Bandcamp or whatever, and you can pay to download. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Who wants to do that? I get it. You're trying to cut out the middleman, but if you press your own shit and you sell it, you get 100% of the money, So if you're going to at least do it yourself.
Well, and there's a lot of people calling themselves labels, but what are they really doing? They're just helping you market,
Dude, we've dealt with that. There's some nightmares.
Taking the money and that they promise you and fucking you.
I've seen it where like we've dealt with it personally, where you put out a record and you don't even see the record till about after a year it's been released, and and
you get the cover and they put a big star. They put a big star over the middle of the main part of the record.
That's Germany. Germany did that to us. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
They put on the record somebody important's in the band, and you should buy the record because of that.
That's marketing. Right. That's the marketing shit now. Yeah,
name recognition.
Yeah. So you guys got that, and before we go into something else with you, actually, and I also want to mention, I mentioned we were talking about this last night. So you guys, do you want to mention the show that you guys are probably going to play? Because I think the lineup's awesome. I don't know if you want to mention that on here.
Oh, it's not 100% confirmed yet, but in Cape Coral, there's a really cool venue / pizza place called Nice Guys, and it's right now it seems like it's 100%. The date's not nailed down yet, but it'll be Burned at the Stake with Nunslaughter and Profanatica.
Wow. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah.
that's
show.
kind of a, and I know Profanatica just put out that Crux Simplex, I think, this year on Season of the Mist. And I know Nunslaughter, they've, we were talking about Nunslaughter earlier in the show. They have a shitload of releases.
2,562 splits. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have, like the last full length they did was, what was it? Red is the Color of Ripping Death, which was like 2021. But I love Nunslaughter. If that happens, that'll be a killer show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, so the Howl Tattoo, or how the venue / tattoo is located. You can let me know if I'm incorrect, at 4160 Cleveland Ave in Fort Myers.
That's right. Yeah. We've been there for about 10 years. We used to be next door to Brent's Music, but unfortunately they had to close. They were like the oldest music store in the area. The space got taken over by somebody else, so they had to leave. But yeah, we're basically across from the Edison Mall in this old plaza area where there used to be like a bowling alley and a skateboard shop and stuff.
You got a phone number for that place you want to share?
Sure. It's 239. Yeah, it's 239-332-0161. And it's howlgallery.com is the website.
Okay. So before Eric joins us on here too, who's actually going to be promoting a show that you guys are going to play on, which we'll talk about. You're also heavily involved in, obviously, Satanism. You got introduced from the Satanic Bible in high school, correct?
Yeah. I always started. My sister was the only survivor of this really bad car accident, so I started getting into like occult books more, and just seeing what was out there, like life after death stuff, all that kind of shit. And then all of it pretty much seemed like pretty goofy. My grandpa was a reverend. He's in Methodist. He was a Methodist reverend. So I kind of grew up behind the church scenes, and I never subscribed to any of it. It just felt like a bunch of bullshit to me. And it felt like you were being coerced, all this Christian coercion. And it just felt wrong, it felt evil. So I was just looking at other stuff out there, other ideas, and the Satanic Bible was the only thing I really found that seemed like realistic. Like this is just like you're an animal, you're here on Earth, we don't know why we're here, but you need to treat people like they treat you, and if somebody fucks with you, it's okay to be pissed and get revenge if you need that, or just live the way you want to live. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to live how you choose to live, like as an individual. So that I felt that right away. I was like, oh, this is, I didn't like say, oh, I'm a Satanist right away. I was like, this is cool. I like it. This is the most, yeah, this is the most clear, like someone is not just trying to feed me a load of shit. It's just like this guy is just trying to be realistic and be like, the world is not exactly good. There's a lot of bad stuff in the world, and you need to see it.
Yeah, when I first met Ed, he was part of the Hare Krishners. Remember Ed?
Had the little thing on the top, and fucking.
He was marching down the street, and we met, and then we started doing bands together. It worked out perfect.
Yeah,
but
that's cool.
Switch gears quick.
I love a lot of Hinduism and Buddhism and stuff like that too, like Zen Buddhism. Like there's some similarities between Satanism and Buddhism in some ways. There's no God in Buddhism, So I like a lot of the Eastern religion, and I got into that during college. But I also got more into Satanism during college too, and just the two things made sense to me. Having, being open minded and having more of a mystical, like you don't need to know like why we're here. We're just here. Let's just have a good time.
Well, you also in high school you had an experience, right? You went to go see in Jacksonville. You went to see the Electric Hellfire, and if you want to,
that was when I was in college. When I started getting Electric Hellfire Club, my buddy in high school actually turned me on to like Danzig and some music that I hadn't heard of yet. So I went down that rabbit hole when I got into college. Started listening to more, darker shit, and Electric Hellfire Club was like, oh shit, this is fucking really cool. This is really far out there. And I ended up getting really into that, and that tied into with me reading more and more Anton LaVey books. And then so I went to Jacksonville and I had been doing posters, like satanic posters and shit, and I gave a bunch to Thomas Thorne, who's the lead singer of the Electric Hellfire Club. And then
there was also Ed in Wolfen Society with Vincent, with Lord Armand from Dark Funeral. They did that. They did that Conquer Divine EP. Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah. I got to hang out with Lord Armand at the Dark Funeral show at the Orpheum recently too, and
we just had him on a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. He asked me about Thomas. Because I live pretty close to Thomas now. He's down in the Everglades, retired. But yeah. So that kind of just I ended up doing a T-shirt for Electric Hellfire Club when they toured with Danzig. In that Black Acid Devil era of Danzig, which is not his best era. But it was cool, and I got to go backstage and all that shit. It was fun. But over the years, I stayed in contact with Thomas, and he ended up bringing Peter Gilmore and Peggy Nadramia from the Church of Satan to Howl, and that kind of rekindled things with me and Satanism, and so I got basically ended up doing a book with Peter Gilmore, an art book with tattoo artists and heavy metal illustrators, and just like a lot of artwork that we collect from people, like submit, and then we approve it, and I publish it as a hardcover art book. So we're on our fifth one now.
Yeah,
it's called The Devil's Reign.
I think we mentioned this artist actually earlier in the show before you came on. I think Wes Bonskotter's on that. Is right? Is that how?
Yeah. Wes hit me up to be in. I think it was the second or third book. I think it was the third book. Wes Benscoter and also Mark Riddick hit me up at about the same time to be in the book. Because it's like connecting a lot of cool dots. Like there's Church of Satan organization, and there's all these people that they're not necessarily ever joined it, but they're like, yeah, Anton LaVey, badass. It's cool shit, and it gives other people a chance to somehow be involved without becoming members or anything. It's more of just a cultural. I was even able to pull in artists from like the 60s, like S. Clay Wilson, who was doing stuff in San Francisco. I got him involved. Before he died, I got him involved. So it's like I've connected all these fucking dots. Even Winston Smith that did Dead Kennedy's album artwork, I pulled him in.
Well, S. K. Wilson, he was with, we were just talking about him with Blaine. He did some stuff with Blaine from The Accused, on the farts.
Yeah, no, these are badass dudes that are just like, they're a lot of times they're bikers and metal dudes and shit. Not necessarily people that would give a shit about joining the Church of Satan, but, just like, yeah, paying homage to it, being involved with it in a lighter way, in a more like, art, just cool way.
And Peter Gilmore, he's another guy we've brought up on this show. He did the keyboards with Asheron for Rites of the Black Mass in '92. He was on like 8 other different CDs, but was doing the keyboards for them. We did speak about Gilmore. And the book you're talking about is The Devil. What is the Devil Reign art book series?
The Devil's Reign. Yeah. So, Peter came up with the name. And then we just kind of like made it an art show, and it ended up. It started at Howl, had a big opening. All the Church of Satan people fly down, and even just all kinds of cool artists in there in the book, tattoo artists. They'll fly into Fort Myers, would have a show. We had like a beer made custom for the first 3 shows.
You did a gallery tour also, didn't you?
Yeah, when I toured, it went out to Stephen Romano Gallery in New York City. He hosted it. And then it went to Iridanos in Boston. So it had a little bit of the first year we did it, it kind of really branched out quite a bit. Got some attention. It was there's some stuff on CNN. They shared some pictures.
And what was and you guys also, you can explain this to me because I didn't, you guys did a theatrical baptism script, right? You did, which is based off of like LaVey's ritual. Baptism?
Yeah, so in every year I help out and tattoo it's called Tabernacle of Oddities. It's Dysfunctional Grace. It's oddities store in Ybor. They sell like taxidermy, human remains, all kinds of cool.
It's over by the old Orpheum, right?
Yeah, I think Cannibal Corpse actually just did a photo shoot there this last year. But yeah, I'm good. They're my family. The Orpheum and Dysfunctional Grace are kind of like family to me now, like because I've been doing stuff with them so long. But they host a show every year, Tabernacle of Oddities. It's held in August, and they moved to a bigger space called the Cuban Club this year, and they've got a giant theater there. And they were like, "Hey, you're a priest in the Church of Satan now. Do you want to maybe like baptize people?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was gonna, we should totally do that." And I hadn't done anything like that before. So it basically was like 6 months of me like getting props and figure out what I was going to do. And then me and Peter, and costumes too, for the people that are also there. Like there's 2 women that help me and my bass player. is like the gong man. So I bought like $1,000 gong and like got all these nice costumes made, because if I'm gonna do it, I don't want to do it cheesy. Like Satanic Temple has been doing some unbaptism stuff, and it's just like they're standing at a folding table and they just like put an upside down cross on her head. And I was like, no, if I'm gonna do this, I want to do it like Anton LaVey would have done it, or like how Peter Gilmore did some stuff, where you do it on stage and you do it in a theatrical way with like cool stage lighting, and you make it a production, And this is like actually a Church of Satan satanic baptism, where you're like,
are you
in
doing
the
that
name
at the
of
fest
Satan
coming up, the Black Mass Fest?
So I'm doing that at the Black Mass, yes. So I did it at Tabernacle, and then I was asked pretty much right away by John from The Haunted, who organized Black Mass, if I would be interested in not only playing but also doing baptisms at the end of the night. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's great, because I already just invested like $2 or $3 grand in this, so I would love to be able to do it again. So yeah, it's a script written by me and Peter Gilmore, who Peter and me talk every day. He's a lot like a father figure, not just to me, but to a lot of people. But over the years, me and him have just like, we constantly are talking either about Godzilla or horror movies, or doing stuff like this, or doing The Devil's Reign. So it's just a good like partnership kind of thing I've got with Peter. But yeah, we wrote the script. It's based off of the Anton LaVey. In the Satanic Rituals, there's 2 baptisms, one's for children, one's for adults. I took part of the beginning of the child baptism because I liked the way it started. And then I used a lot of the adult baptism, but simplified it a little bit. Because like in the adult baptism, there's like, you got to strip down naked, and where you start off with a white robe, and then you strip down naked, and then you put this black robe on. And it's a bunch of stuff that wouldn't necessarily work for a public satanic baptism,
You'd have Chris Hansen to be knocking down your door.
Yeah, and we also made it more blasphemous, where I actually tear pages out of a Bible and burn them, and then I take the ashes and mix it with oil, and I use that to make an inverted cross on the forehead as part of the baptism.
And you guys have actually had you've had LaVey son at your band practice, at your shop and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had pretty much anybody that's like heavily involved with Church of Satan has been to Howl. But yeah, Blanche Barton, who was LaVey's biographer and was his romantic partner at the end of his life, birthed his son, Satan Xerxes LaVey. They've both been at the shop. We actually hosted the 50th anniversary of the Satanic Bible at my shop at Howl. So, along with the Devil's Reign, I've also done some other events. Like, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. So does your band actually have the same system as you guys? Like, you guys all kind of have the same belief system, or you kind of guys?
I mean, everybo's down with the Satanism for sure. I'm the only person I think in the band that's actually like a member. But I mean, we're all like, we all know what it's about. You definitely wouldn't be able to be in a band with me if you had no idea, or like thought it was like some kind of nasty, cult shit. It's not like that at all. I mean, Peter works with the FBI.
Yeah. So that, and you guys, and also with you, with your artwork wise, I also noticed, so you've worked with, obviously you've done artwork for, I should say, the Electric Hellfire Club, Municipal Waste, the Murder Junkies. I think you actually have some of your artwork, you said, was tattooed on with Merle.
Yeah. The first the first show that Merle, the Murder Junkies, did with me at Howl, I did a poster with the Murder Junkies skull cracked open, and inside the skull it said "Live Fast, Die" with an upside down cross. And Merle actually, just like I think it was last year, got it tattooed on his back by his tattoo artist out in California.
I think I remember seeing that actually.
Yeah. It's based off of the Jeff Geither one, who's also a friend of mine. He's been in my books. Jeff Geither, the original Murder Junkies logo artist. But it's based off that one. But yeah, I just did a shirt for Municipal Waste. I hung out with Tony at Tabernacle this last one when I did the baptisms. I was also tattooing there.
Yeah, I think he's over in St. Pete now, right? I think Tony's. I
think he's half there, maybe, and half up north, because I think he's got a lot of roots in Richmond still, in Virginia. But yeah, he's a super cool dude. I tattooed him, and he hit me up after the show to do as a toxic waste kind of goat coming out of a dumpster was the idea. So I did that for a shirt that he just toured with in Europe. Okay, hopefully he sold a bunch of them.
I'm sure they did. I think they do rather well.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, and you guys, so you have, so how was, you guys just played also the Tampa Death Fest, was it last weekend?
Yeah, we did. It was at the beginning of this month. It was
October.
we played on Friday, right a day before Venom and Satan and Ringworm were there. But it was a decent turnout, and you could definitely tell when you're hitting on the right kind of shit visually and sound wise when people start taking a lot of pictures of you and are like very involved and start a mosh pit. I mean, it's a great feeling, even when it's a smaller crowd. I mean, I don't expect much because we're not really, nobody knows who we are, a little bit, but not much.
Was that your first time at the Mug?
This is my first time, but not Doug and James have both played there. Like neither, James got pretty far with neither. I think he was even invited to play at Walkin' one time. And then Doug has played there a lot. It was my first time there. I usually end up at the Orpheum, But yeah, it's a cool place. I dig it.
So next for you guys, you're basically going to record a new record.
Yeah, we got to get that done.
You got the show coming up.
Yeah, and we might have another show at Nice Guys at the end of December. I'm friends with Sorcerer, and they're trying to come down here on another tour if they can get their drummer back down. So we'll see what happens.
Sorcerer guys. Also joining us, speaking about the Black Metal Fest 3, we have who's basically become a regular on the show. I think this is his third time, and how many episodes, Ed, have we done?
This is 16.
3 episodes now. Probably
so
in the next
3 with Eric.
Months. Yes.
Yes, this is the third with Eric. How you doing, man, Mr. Eric?
Good to see you guys.
But yeah, so Eric is the promoter. For those who don't know, and those who have listened to our previous shows know, he put on the Tampa Death Fest, which we were just talking to Andy. They just played that beginning of the month. And Eric, what can you tell us about the show coming up?
Oh, Black Mass 3 at, of course, the Brass Mug here in Tampa. We've got, starting off the night at 6 o'clock, a guitar shred competition. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never personally hosted a shred competition, but it looks like a lot of fun. So I'm actually still picking people up for that, even though we are a week from the show. So hopefully we'll get a few more people on board for that. And then bands start at 7, be on the shred competition. There's a one-man band, Dawn of the Black Sun, who is opening up the show. Really interesting stuff. Basically, it's like a keyboardist with backing tracks, and it's kind of a Luciferian-themed show. Very, theatrical. So looking forward to seeing his show. And, it's just a short, 20-minute opening set just to get the night started. And we've got a band from here in Tampa called Bad Future, which was highly recommended by the owner of the venue, so we took them on. And then, Hacks Process from North Florida, which if you're familiar with those guys at all, man, I was blown away just by the level of their musicianship. So I'm really looking forward to their show as well. Burned at the Stake, of course. Those guys will be on. And then we've got Fathom from Fort Lauderdale headlining. So that's
we had Fathom on a few weeks ago.
Set,
they're
cool. They're going to be performing their entire new album as well as some older tracks. And then wrapping up the show, Andy will be doing
the Black Mass, right?
Yes. The satanic baptisms at the end of the night. So just as a general summary, that's kind of how it's going to go. And I think it's going to be a pretty successful show. I'm
it'll be fun.
Looking forward to the satanic baptisms. I unfortunately missed the one that Andy held a few months back in Ybor City. Would have loved to have been there, but hoping to maybe be a part of the baptism and be
it'll be fun.
Baptize myself.
Andy, what is the biggest misconception you think, man, about like, people who, they hear, oh, this guy's into this and this. What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have
I mean,
who aren't educated
people
enough to
that
look into it?
I think that anybody that hasn't looked into what Satanism is just assumes that it's like a traditional Christian kind of thing, and it's not. It's the opposite of that. There are no gods. You are your own god. The character of Satan is just one of like the rebel. It's the individual versus the collective. And that's where the Satan part of it is really about. It's about you in charge of your own life, and you don't have to fall in line with the herd. And a lot of people, I think that way, but don't necessarily understand that that's what it is.
Yeah, because people don't really look into it. I know, they always get these ideas and they start running with them.
That bums me out because I just saw The Exorcist and I thought maybe I walk into the woods and then I come out and start doing evil shit. Isn't that what they say, right? That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Well, yeah, you got to be scared of nature, because if you go into the woods, you're going to get possessed by a demon. It's like, come
exactly.
on, the woods aren't that scary.
Exactly.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. And Eric, you must be a glutton for punishment, man. You just did a show with like 75 bands for 3 days, and now it's a lot less of a bill, right? But how did the Tampa Death Fest go for you? Were you fucking wiped out after that?
Yeah, I was for quite a while. There was so much planning involved in that one, especially this year. We had just bigger bands. So of course there was a lot more going on. We had bands coming in from out of state. Like one band flew in from Chicago with literally nothing but their guitars on them. So there was a lot of a lot of planning involved in a few of those.
Sounds like DRI.
Yeah, man, it was definitely the finished show was well worth all the effort, and I had a lot of support from the community, which was great to see. A lot of people involved in the show beyond just the bands playing, and so much more, coverage and people volunteering to cover, whether it's, video or like you guys or radio stations.
Yeah, I just talked to Death Metal Dave this morning actually about your coming on, and I know he had you guys on his show a few times.
Yeah, he did. He was, man, that guy's great. Of course, everybody knows, Death Metal Dave and what he does, and I really, really look up to him. So it was really cool to be, part of his show. Actually, the second time now, this past year. So.
And I know Dave's really working on that. Me and Ed talked about this a couple times. The Tampa Bay Museum. The Metal Museum, which is going to be pretty cool because Dave obviously goes way back into that, and I'm pretty excited to see when they actually get that all set up and figure that all out and everything. And and the Brass Mug has been support. I think you have worked with the Brass Mug a few times now, right? And they're Rick and Heather always are supportive of your shows. I think we lost Eric for a second, but he'll be back, I'm sure. But oh, there he is. You're back now. But yeah, we were saying the Brass Mug has been always supportive of your shows that you put on.
Oh yeah. It's particularly the past couple of years, I think it shows more and more. Even just working directly with the owners, like I feel like I've really gained a lot of respect from them, which is great. I mean, that's a huge thing for me to be able to get to that level with them.
Yeah, Andy was telling us that we figured out that he has a venue too. I didn't know this actually until I did some research, man. So I mean, and so how is the crowd turnouts there where you're at in Fort Myers? Is that like
it fluctuates. It just depends. I mean, there's definitely not as much of a metal community as like a city like Tampa. There are metalheads, and I've met a lot of cool people coming out to shows. But and that's the thing I always say is that if it's not a national band, it's really difficult to get people out to shows. I mean, maybe if you were in New York and there was more of just a grassroots, I think it's like that in Tampa too. It's really hard to get people out to shows unless it's a really well-known national band that everybody has seen on TV or something like that.
Especially on weekdays,
to motivate
it's always
people.
Tough.
Oh yeah, just people are very apathetic with the way the world is right now, and also they don't have that much money, so it's hard. It's a hard sell getting people out to see a band they've never heard of.
Yeah, and like you said, the world is so fucked up now, and everyone's kind of the pandemic killed everyone's wallets, and everyone's everything's just kind of crazy. So I totally understand.
And
what you're saying.
I think the pandemic also just got people used to sitting at home.
Yeah,
yeah.
Bands were
Like
doing those live streams.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean before COVID dropped, we were getting like big turnouts just for like open mic nights and stuff on a Thursday night, and then that happened, and then it all kind of like went to shit, and it was like, how do we build this back up? Like we're starting from zero again.
Well, I think some people were probably still scared for a long time to go out because they still thought the boogeyman was hanging out. And
oh yeah, I mean that was shoved down our throats.
Yeah, man. And it is what it is. But you build your immune system. I mean, I know. Which show was it, Tony? We were talking about where there was a show in Tampa and like a bunch of people got COVID. And we were and I was going to go to that show, and I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't go. I think it was at the Orpheum. I can't remember.
It was I think it was at the Mug, actually, I believe. And you're right, because I forget who. Yeah, it was a big show, and I remember like everyone went, and then like 3 days, 4 days later, you started seeing everyone being like, I'm getting the funk. I'm getting the funk.
Got COVID, yeah.
But I mean, I think Sweden did it the right way. Sweden just let all the young people go out and had the old people stay home.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to build their immune system up, man. If you build your immune system, it's hard to compromise. That's the problem. Most people who got sick weren't healthy. I mean, it's just a fact.
Yeah. I mean, I lost some. There's definitely a lot of people that died that were really good friends. Like Dominic from Earn passed. He seemed great.
Yeah,
but
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that sucked. We were going to go on tour with him right before he died.
Yeah, that's the problem too. Is none of us ever. I mean, I'm 52, and for years I couldn't get insurance because I'm self-employed. So I would have to have the Medicaid bullshit, and they send you to the shitty doctor, and they don't care. They just fucking keep filling you full of pills. And it wasn't until I got insurance and went to the doctor myself that he's like, no, we're going to get everything checked out. And you go and you do everything, and you realize, man, I got some shit I got to address. And if you don't know, you don't know. So that's the problem, is we don't think about taking care of ourselves until it's too late.
And we all know at the Brass Mug or any venue, you're shaking hands all night, man. Who knows what that? I'm sure there's not a lot of people washing their hands in the bathroom. No offense to anybody, but
sometimes there's no soap or towels.
Exactly, man. There's a guy coming out of the pisser shaking your hand like 5 minutes later. You're like, yo, what's up, man? It's like
for a while. The first show I went back to, man, because I didn't go for a while. I saw Left to Die was the first show I kind of went back to the Mug, and we know why, because I'm friends with obviously Rick and Terry. But man, all these people I hadn't seen, I was like, and I noticed everybody wanted the fist bump, and I was like, I get it. Hard to catch something from a fist bump, I guess. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it was a scary thing. And I think, again, people lost their jobs. The pay has dropped a little bit. People probably don't have money to go to every show that comes around. It's just a fact. And if it's not a big band, or if you got 6 bands, especially in Tampa, like what was it, Tony? You had Deicide, and then the next week it was this band, and then the next week it was that band, and there was like 5 shows coming in 1 month.
It is crippling to the regular kid who doesn't have a shitload of income.
Yeah, I think one weekend, the Orpheum was a Friday night, and then there was a show at the Mug on a Saturday, and then there was another show at the Orpheum on Sunday. It was like 3 big bands back to back. How many people can afford, really, with today's prices, to do that?
It's saturated.
It sucks, man. It sucks. And honestly, the overscheduling that they do, because a lot of people, when they book shows, you book around kind of bands that are coming so that you actually get a crowd, because that's what obviously pays the bills. And a lot of times they don't tell you, and you get there and you find out, hey, so-and-so. I saw, who was it? Somebody, I don't think it was Venom, but somebody, they got to the town, and there was another big show happening in the same town. 2 big bands battling each other. One of them was Cannibal. I think it was Cannibal Corpse. And then somebody else was playing down the road. It was the Matt Harvey with the Cavalera dudes doing that Sepultura.
Cavalera Conspiracy.
Yeah, so it was those dudes playing the same night as Cannibal. Who do you go see? Do you go see the Cavalera, or do you go see Cannibal? You know what I mean? That's a fucking That
It
sucks.
gets
and
expensive.
that happens in Tampa. That happens in Tampa all the time.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it does happen in Tampa a
Yes.
lot. I mean, Eric, you know, when you're booking shows, man, probably the worst feeling, because I know when we used to book shows back in the days, when you see that flyer go up a week later for a band that's obviously bigger than the band you booked, you're like, shit, man. You know, it's hard to compete because if you
Yes,
Cannibal sells out every show,
definitely,
you're
you
not. Yeah,
We had that months ago when booking Tampa Death Fest. It was
I think we lost Eric. There
the
he is.
headliners were coming to Tampa, and we're like, oh shit, like what are we gonna do? Are we gonna move this whole thing or what? But
Yeah.
but fortunately, we were able to pick them up, and they joined us rather than competing with us. But that could
which
have
was
been a
very
disaster.
slick. That could have been
a disaster.
catastrophic.
Yeah, because I
that-
remember
Well, I mean-
a friend of mine came to town. They were playing at the Mug, and I had tickets that same day. Fucking tickets to Maiden dropped, or Maiden was coming to the fucking the Ice Palace, and I was like, dude, how often do you see Maiden? I had to go see Maiden. I mean, it wasn't disrespect. It's just you don't know if you're ever going to see Maiden again. So, that's what sucks is when the big bands come. You're kind of like, sorry.
Yeah. I think even during Death Fest, when the night Venom and Satan played, you had Revocation and Unearth at the Orpheum, and I mean,
that's
Oh,
right.
I
I
didn't
went to
know that.
both.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, I
that's
went to
right.
both, and they were both solid turnouts, though. I mean, that's the good thing that Tampa's got going for it is there's so many people there.
Right?
And they're a
yeah.
block away, and they're a block away now, so you could just literally
Yeah,
leave your
Yeah.
car in the parking lot and walk there.
basically.
That's right.
Yeah, I actually have not been to the new Orpheum yet. I'm definitely looking forward to checking
That's
it out
killer.
when I'm back in town. But I heard it's definitely killer.
There's the inside is like 500 capacity, and then they got the outside stage, which is more like 1,500 or whatever.
I love the outside stages. I mean, I like that whole setup. Like Janus Landing is actually a beautiful venue now, and it's always been cool, but they really upgraded
Yeah.
that place a lot. It's so Eric, what's the tickets, price, time, all that good shit that you want to share about the fest?
So Black Mass, it's $15. We're just doing cash at the door this year. No links or anything. We're just going to keep it straightforward. The show starts at 6. The doors are at 5, and it's October 28th, so the Saturday before Halloween. At the Brass Mug. We've got some great bands, all either black metal or black metal-esque, which is pretty rare. Although lately, I actually have seen some just straight black metal shows at the Brass Mug and around, playing locally, which is good to see because there really wasn't a whole lot of that there for quite a while. But we've kind of had a resurrection of newer black metal bands here in
That's good.
Tampa and in Florida in general. I mean, other than that, there's not a whole lot of information. It's a very straightforward show. We just got one night, 5 bands. Of course, we've got a couple other things going on besides the bands. We've got the Satanic Baptism at the end of the night. We've got just a fun guitar shred competition to open the show. That pretty much covers it. Like I said,
You got a Facebook page for it too, right? Anybody wants to check out the Facebook
there's,
page?
There is a Facebook, event link for the show, and I've been trying to really press it, hard on Facebook and Instagram and even TikTok. Trying to get the word out there any way possible as far as social media goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a press release to Church of Satan, so Church of Satan will be posting the info for the show also, like I did for Death Fest.
Nice,
Cool.
nice.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
great.
pimp it
Yeah.
out on all our pages too. So
Yeah, we talked about
And
it
I
last
think-
show. We kind of
Yeah.
go ahead. Andy.
James, my guitar player, is going to be in the shred competition, and he's actually donating. He makes guitars too, Scotterio music. He makes really nice guitars, metal guitars, and whatever. But I think he's donating a gift certificate for that. Also, whoever wins the competition.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
awesome.
Nice.
and the baptism info is if you want to be baptized, you come up one at a time on stage, and to sign up for that, you just kind of come to the Burned at the Stake, or Black Sunday is what I call it for the baptisms. Come to the Black Sunday table and sign up. It's like I'm charging $20. That's just how I cover my costs. So
Can Ed move to the
$20,
front of the line?
get baptized.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Can
Oh,
Ed
yeah.
come to the front of the line for this? Okay.
Absolutely.
You're set, Mr. Webb. But
I'll do like they do when when at the church when the demon comes out and
oh,
the
that's
guy
the best.
I'm just gonna freaking do the whole thing, man. I'm gonna make it up. We'll put you on the map. I'll make it fucking perfect.
After I finished the baptisms at the Cuban Club, I actually did one more for a friend of mine, and he actually stripped naked with a mask on, and I baptized him naked.
There you go, man.
Well, if you do the naked thing, you could do that murder junkie shows all day long.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing there, you know.
Oh yeah, I've had Dino. I've seen all of Dino.
Oh, we got some Dino stories, man. From our
I've seen more of Dino. I've seen more of Dino than I ever wanted to see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, and Andy, so basically anybody who wants to find out, give your band links or whatever you want, man. Go ahead and you can spit it out.
I mean, the best place to do is just go to Instagram or Facebook and look up Burned at the Stake. If you go on Instagram, I've got Rev Andy Howl. That's where all the Black Sunday baptism stuff. That's the baptism account. But the easiest thing to do is just either look me up, Andy Howl, on Instagram or Facebook. Or just you can Google it too. There's plenty of links out there. The Devil's Reign has links to everything too, which is the howlbooks.net or devilsreign.com. But it's all my shit's linked together. So you can find the band, you can find my tattooing, you can find the books, you can find the baptism stuff.
Cool, man. And we do appreciate you guys coming on, Andy. I definitely was, definitely cool to meet you, man.
I appreciate
looking forward to checking you guys out when I'm back in Florida. Eric, as always, we appreciate you coming on. And anything you guys want to say on your way out?
All right. Well, Black Mass 3. Look up the event link on Facebook. It's just as it is pronounced, Black Mass with 3 eyes. And then Tampa Bay Metal Scene. Of course, we're on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok. Easy enough to find us there as well for any shows that are coming up.
And Andy, we're going to see a new record. We're going to see a new record in 2024. You're saying?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Halfway recorded.
Halfway recorded. It's coming out.
Yeah, Lee's moving it. I mean, but I will say, if you like Monstrosity, it's definitely going to crush.
Nice.
Cool, man. Well, hey, we appreciate it, guys. You all coming on and good luck this weekend at the show.
Thanks a lot.
We'll say goodbye to you guys after we sign off. And Andy, man, good luck. We're looking forward. When you get some new material, send it over to us. We'll give it a spin on the show.
Awesome.
And Eric, we'll be in touch, of course. And good luck on this weekend, man. You survived the 75 band show, so I think you're going to be okay with this one.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I guess I must be just like you said, a glutton for punishment, because here I am, 3 weeks later, already up to another show. So.
Oh my God, dude, you're fucking crazy.
Better you than me, dude.
Yeah,
exactly.
Got to do it, man. Someone's got to do it. There's always that guy. That's how it keeps on passing the torch. Without that,
you burn it at both ends.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but yeah, anybody who listens to the Tampa Morgue, we appreciate it. You can find us on Ed. We're going to do this whole spiel. YouTube,
Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music.
Everywhere pretty much now, I think that you can find
the Tampa Morgue at gmail.com.
Yes, and if you go to the YouTube, please subscribe. We post all the shows up there for anybody who doesn't have all the outlets like the Spotify and all that crap. The Apple Podcast, Amazon Music. But yeah, again, we appreciate it, Eric and Andy, for stopping by. Ed, anything on the way out you got to say?
Nope, I'm done. I'm going to watch football.
There you go. Yeah, thanks for listening to the Tampa Morgue. We'll be back next week. We're working on a guest. We'll announce it once it's 100% confirmed time and all that. I'm not sure if we'll be back before then this week, but we will definitely see you this week. And everyone have a great week, man. Check out the Black Mass 3 at the Brass Mug in Tampa, Florida. And, check out Howl Tattoo also. And, we'll see you guys very soon, man. Thanks for listening.
See you.
Thanks, man.